Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel if you haven't been here before. Today is another special video. Now, I'm nervous to make this video for a few reasons. There's lots of things that could go wrong here. Number one, I've been working on this since June. At first, I wanted to make a PowerPoint presentation to share with my friends, and then it became so much more. I still don't think I'm really done with the PowerPoint, but I don't think I ever really will be. Number two, this isn't really something that's actually known. None of this is certain, so this is completely my interpretation. And to be honest, I'm a little afraid of FNAF fans. Now, I am obsessed with the lore, so I have to make this video just because I love it, but to be honest, I'm scared of you guys. And I just want you to know that this is my own interpretation and this is my own timeline that makes me personally satisfied with the story. Number three, I really wanted to get this out before the movie came out. So this might come out on the day the movie comes out because I'm filming this on Monday before the movie comes out. Now, before I jump right into it, I just want to thank particularly Wendigoon and MatPat. I'm mostly using stuff from their timelines, their videos. Wendigoon's timeline is my personal favorite that I watch. I'm a big Wendigoon fan, so I don't think that'll come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I basically agree with most of his placements of the certain games and events, but I will be going into details some other things I feel like I think are interesting that he didn't touch on, which, not his fault. I really love that video. In the description, I will be putting links to videos and creators who I watched to help me make this video. So I highly recommend you watch other people because I am not unique in making this video at all. Wait, I gotta mention, I also took a gummy vitamin. So this is going to be a little 420 edition, so if I start acting a bit more diluted as this goes on, that's the point. That's one of the things I wanted, so that'll be fun. Let's get right into it. My interpretation of Five Nights at Freddy's, Allie, because that's my name. Welcome to my FNAF PowerPoint. If you are here, you have agreed to something terrible. You are letting an e-girl explain the FNAF lore to you. Good news. I've done my best to create one of the most thorough investigative work pieces that I've ever done. Bad news. There's a chance that this presentation is extremely long. It is. Good news again. Hopefully, I've been able to explain the lore in the least confusing way possible. That's my goal with this. And bad news again, the timeline is confusing, and it's still argued upon when some things happen, if some things happen, what some things are. So therefore, a lot of this interpretation is my personal opinion. So first, take a deep breath. First, we gotta start with events that predate any of the games. I know, take a deep breath, but we'll be okay. I'm gonna do some world building for you, don't even worry about it. First, let me introduce to you the founders, the first two people in our story. We got one. If you're any familiar with the lore, you'll probably recognize William Afton, and his partner when starting the business out is Henry Emily. There are other characters, but these are the two that we need to get the ball rolling. And I have doodled a little Microsoft Paint picture to paint to you that they're buddies and they're hanging out. And also Henry was supposed to have another leg, but I accidentally Control Z'd it, so I deleted it by accident. I didn't feel like fixing it because there were more important things to do. We're actually gonna go back a bit, and we're going to start with a big thing in William Afton's life. So the first thing I'd like to mention is Fredbear's Singin' Show. So Fredbear's Singin' Show was a restaurant that existed in the 1930s, and it also provided entertainment. The entertainment for this show was an actual singing bear, like an actual bear that sang and danced while you got food. And it was only, did I not put how much it cost? I think it was like a quarter. I don't know. This was in the 1930s, Great Depression. It was like a quarter and you got food and entertainment, and it was a breath of fresh air during the Great Depression in Utah, which is where this all takes place, by the way. Utah. One person who was particularly really inspired by this was young William Afton. Now, there's actually one thing I'm not sure about, and maybe people in the comments can clear up. This all takes place in Utah, but in the games, William Afton has a British accent, and I hear some things that he actually lived in England and then moved to Utah to pursue his dreams. Now, I haven't really heard a good explanation why that is, how that happened, what's the deal with that. But he does have a British accent in the game, so I feel bad ignoring it. But I haven't been given like a real narrative important reason to really care. So I'm just gonna skip over that. But I am aware that in a lot of the tellings, he did live in England and moved to Utah. So this takes place in Utah, but apparently William's from England. But I'm gonna ignore that and say that Fredbear's Singin' Show maybe it was in Utah, maybe it was in England, but William Afton was inspired by this particular show. Afton opened his first restaurant by himself. Growing up, he was inspired by Fredbear's Singin' Show, and he gained a passion for creating mascot suits, and his goal was providing the same joy that Fredbear, the Singin' Bear, provided to him. Once he became an adult, he designed 2 suits. One was a yellow Fredbear suit inspired by Fredbear, the Singin' Bear. 2 was a yellow Bonnie the Bunny suit. Obviously, if you're at all familiar with the games, you know these would later become Freddy and Bonnie. They become different colors. Freddy becomes an actual normal colored bear, and Bonnie becomes blue for some reason. As of right now, they are yellow suits, I think in order to avoid copyright or avoid completely copying Fredbear. But Bonnie was an original design, so Fredbear was special to William because of the childhood attachment, but Bonnie was even more special to him because that was it was his original creation, his original character, his OC, and it was made through his own love of creating. So with this, William is able to open his restaurant and see that his creations bring joy to children, just like Fredbear did for him back in the day. So I drew my interpretation of the original yellow suits. So there's the original Fredbear and original Bonnie. They're both yellow. They've also been referred to as gold. I don't think this particular rendition of Fredbear is Golden Bonnie yet. I think it's a later design that will become the Golden Freddy that we see in the games, but this is not it. This is just the first rendition of it. So now we see where Henry Emily comes into play. Henry Emily opens a new competing business called Chica's Party World. And as you can see, Chica is the chicken mascot animatronic we know and will later be an important character. You know, he basically kind of rips off William's idea of a character-based restaurant with Chica's Party World, and there's a few different animatronics in this. I'm not particularly sure exactly which ones. I'm pretty sure they're the odd looking. They're in some of the games, I think particularly in Ultimate Custom Night. There's like Ned Bear. It's like the little toy ones. If I can find a picture of what I think it is, I will show you. But William is mad because they completely ripped him off because, you know, he had Fredbear and they have a character called Ned Bear. So completely ripped him off. But Chica's Party World ends up being more successful than William's Diner. It's a hit, and the designs are better. I think particularly this one has robot animatronics, whereas William was only relying on the mascot suits. So people were more attracted to the new technology and the, you know, characters that felt more alive. So unfortunately for William, maybe not for us, but maybe for us, his business fails because he just can't compete with the animatronics. And he goes bankrupt and has to sell. I don't know if he goes bankrupt. I don't know. The business fails. He has to sell it. I don't really know how business works, but he sold it. It was kaput. When he had to sell his business, the person who ended up buying it, to add insult to injury, was none other than Mr. Henry Emily, which, you know, salt in the wound. This is starting a little bit of a, and you know, despite all his rage, William does admire Henry. And for this reason, William is able to not put away his rage, but put it aside to end up becoming partners with Henry, and they end up merging their two brands. And this is where we see Chica join, you know, the Fredbear crew, because they were separate, but then they come back together. And this is also a reason why Chica isn't seen in certain games. I think Sister Location, because that's particularly just William's creations. Anything that focuses mostly on William and his creations will not have Chica, particularly because it's not his own original design. Fun fact. So, William Afton and Henry are now business partner buddies, and they have opened a entertainment restaurant together, and this is called Fredbear's Family Diner. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit, if you're a bit familiar with the FNAF lore, you might have heard this, but this is the first location that is basically known. The stuff I said before I think was guesses or maybe from the books. Might have been from the books. I don't know. I didn't read the books. I'm just did my research from other people telling and created my own narrative. This is for real, like very much factually their first location together, at least. So the opening date of this diner is argued upon, but based on the timeline of the games, it's likely that it opened between 1980 and 1982. Some say before that, but I don't really think so. I think it's probably opened in 1982. This restaurant was inspired by the designs of Walt Disney and clearly Chuck E. Cheese. It featured pizza, animatronics, arcade games, and merchandise, you know, all the good stuff of having franchise, especially a character-based one. And it was a massive success. William and Henry see their business grow immensely. Especially in the coming years, it becomes huge. It's a great success. Kids love it. That's the place you go when you want to have a party. So as their business grows, Henry and William are coming up with new designs, new ways to run their business because, you know, as much as I want to hate on business owners, they were creators at heart and they really liked making things. So I gotta recognize that. In this effort, they invented something called the spring lock suit. Now this is very important, so remember this. So the spring lock suit was designed to function in two different ways. It was meant to be a middle ground between a mascot suit and an animatronic suit, which is the middle ground of both Henry and William's designs. Basically, when it's not in animatronic mode, it can like open up and a person can step inside it and use it like a mascot, but you can also set it into an animatronic mode. I don't know exactly how the engineering science works, but basically it can act as an animatronic, do the things of being a bot, but then it can also open up so a person can step inside it safely. Not safely. It's not safe. But anyways, William usually wore the Bonnie suit. He felt attracted to that one because, you know, that's his original, that's his baby. And then Henry was attracted to particularly the Freddy suits, so they would usually wear those when interacting at the restaurant. Yeah, the spring lock is referring to the function that keeps the junk, the animatronic junk, out of the way when someone steps inside it. But the real function that makes this thing concerning is that these spring locks can fail, which is not good if someone is inside them. The two big things that cause spring lock failure is one, water. If it gets wet, that makes it so a spring lock failure is likely. Two is deterioration, like aging, you know, being left out in poor conditions. And spoiler alert, we do see both of those things cause spring lock failure in the future. The spring lock designs of the yellow Bonnie and yellow Freddy are going to be Springtrap being the spring lock Bonnie, and then Golden Freddy later down the line. I just want to set that in your head so it doesn't get confusing. I know it's spoiling, but I'm assuming you don't really care about spoilers. I just want to make that clear that the spring lock designs of these two is become characters that we know. So yeah, these are the two designs. The left one is a yellow Freddy, you know, Golden Freddy. The one on the right is yellow Bonnie. I already explained this, so they'll be known as Golden Freddy and Springtrap. So Fazbear Entertainment becomes established, you know, once they have success in their first location. William and Henry make a whole like chain thing out of it. They make it's a whole thing. Based on different tellings, they do a lot with this. They use this to further expand their ideas and their brand. There are multiple new locations opened, and there's also merch, plushies, toys, I think even a show. They do a lot with their newfound fame and success, and it's a hit. So that is now under the umbrella of Fazbear Entertainment. So after this, there's a revamp of their location and their characters, and they even add a new one. They open Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Listen, where it gets a little shaky, I'm not sure which location opened when, but I'm pretty sure Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens at some point before 1987. But I felt it was worth mentioning while talking about the umbrella of Fazbear Entertainment and establishing the different characters and the same ones, but the different suits. So it grows in popularity because of a TV show that they make, and the characters become popular, kids love them. So they give a revamped design to Freddy and Chica, Bonnie became blue, and they created a new character, Foxy the Pirate. So this is the four that you're probably familiar with if you know next to nothing about Five Nights at Freddy's. You probably know Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy. This is when those are established at this location, at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That's when those designs are established. Actually, I'm pretty sure Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the first location, probably opened around 1985, because these suits end up becoming more deteriorated by the time we get to the location in FNAF 2, but I'll get there. We're gonna do some more character establishment, and this is kind of all the real big character establishing I'm gonna have to do in this video. That's one of the things I kind of really like about the FNAF lore, is I feel like the characters almost all have meaning, and it's more narratively interesting when these characters play a big role and you can see what their intentions and goals are and you see their development. I don't know. That's one thing I like, that it's like focused on a small group of characters who just go through a lot of shit. This is where the lore gets the most frustrating for me. People argue about William Afton's family. I feel like it's pretty clear. I believe that he has a wife and 3 kids. The oldest son being Michael Afton, who is a very vital character in the timeline. I consider him the protagonist of this story. Though it won't seem like it at first, I believe that Michael Afton is the protagonist, despite teenage mistakes. His middle child is his daughter, Elizabeth. And the youngest child is a son, who I will be referring to as the crying child. His actual name is debated upon, so I didn't want to establish a name, but I genuinely believe that his name is Evan, because Wendigoon's video refers to him as Evan, and, you know, a lot of decoding, which is how a lot of people found this. Reading the books, fans did discover that his name was probably Evan. I don't think Afton's wife was ever given a name. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't see anything about her having a name, which is sad. I'm like, damn, like, the women in this story get treated so garbage. It's like insane. She's a victim. I'll get into that, but Mrs. Afton is a victim. She doesn't have a ton of plot relevance besides like angsty William moments, but she does exist. So I drew my interpretation of William Afton's family. Mrs. Afton, aka unnamed wife, William, Michael Mike Afton, crying child, Evan Afton, and Elizabeth Afton. We do need to establish Henry Emily's family, though it's not as big and you only really care about one other person, which would be his daughter, Charlie. From what I saw, it seems like he has a wife and a son. Seems like he had another child. I think some places say that he does, and then some places are like he's a single dad just with a daughter. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. Just know that he has a daughter named Charlie, and she's like his baby. Very important character. I drew a visual representation of the Emily family. We got Henry Emily, Charlie Emily, a relevant wife, and a relevant son. If you notice, I have been color coding a lot of the names in my PowerPoint. And that is intentional because colors are used in this game quite a lot, though sometimes in a confusing way, and I wasn't perfect with the way I color coded them, but I felt like I did my best at doing something that made sense. So William Afton is purple because, you know, he's the purple guy. Michael Afton, he's seen as purple later, and I don't think there's ever really another color used for them, so I picked a more like tame purple, like a gray purple. Elizabeth Afton is pink. Crying child, aka Evan Afton, will be blue. Henry Emily will be orange, and Charlie Emily will be green. Great news. We are now actually entering the timeline of the games. Yay. Yay. And now we're starting with the 4th game. This is the first in the timeline. This is the 4th game to be released. Personally, I tried to play this game, but it was way too scary, so I quit. I couldn't even get past the first night.
The first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through
because it was too scary. It's hard because basically the game, I'm gonna explain the gameplay because I think that's fun. That's a little angle I want to take. But yeah, basically the gameplay is you're a child in the bedroom and you're up late at night, you're having nightmares, and there's the nightmare animatronics coming for you. So there is a nightmare Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy. Basically the whole game is just going to the door, seeing if you can hear them. You have to rely on audio cues, which is why I can't do that, because you have to turn up the volume so when they jump scare you, it's like really f***ing loud, and I can't do that. Loud things, I just can't do it. I'll watch Markiplier play it, I'll keep it on a low volume, I'm not gonna hear the breathing. I don't know, it's so tiny too, it's like a little it's so bad. I can't do it. It sucks. Like, you have to turn the volume, which is like a clever game design if you're for people who really like being jump scared and stuff, but I can't do loud noises. I could do the other games. But I think it is smart game design, even if it's just something I can't do, because, you know, you're finding a way to force the player to be more terrified, which is clever if you're really trying to create something scary, which I think this might be the scariest one. It's freaky. But yeah, that's the gameplay for that. You have to close doors, shine the light when you think they're gone. Foxy goes in your closet. There's little b****s on the back of your bed. You don't learn the story through any of the gameplay, really. If anything, the gameplay just Easter eggs, potential lore. This is all learned through basically newspaper clippings, those little 8-bit segments, and the books. So that's how clear this is. So this game takes place in the Afton house. There's not much going on there right now, but there will be. But this becomes an important setting for different events. This is like the original family house. There's like enough bedrooms for a couple, mom and dad, and 3 children, 1 a girl. However, the girl's never seen in this game. I'll get to that because this is where the timeline gets argued upon. But just know that this is where FNAF 4 takes place, in the youngest boy's bedroom. Now, why is the daughter not there? I hate that I have to justify so much, because the timeline is argued so much that I have to explain myself and forfeit any of my fun narrative storytelling drama, but that's just what I gotta do. So people believe that since the girl's bedroom is always empty, in the 8-bit segments, you never see her in her room, it's empty. People believe that Elizabeth Afton has already died at this point. Spoiler alert, she will die. But I don't think she has yet. If I've learned anything about FNAF fans, it's that they hate satisfying narratives and just like it when children die because William Afton was like feeling silly. But I don't believe Elizabeth Afton is dead yet. Here's a thought. Maybe she goes outside. Maybe she does clubs. Maybe, I don't know, she's a child in the 80s. She might be outside. She doesn't stay in her room all day like you guys. I don't know. Maybe not. That could be an explanation. But so William's a deadbeat dad. So the year is 1983. Through the 8-bit mini-games in FNAF 4, we are told the story about how William is a terrible dad and traumatizes his kids. He does that quite a lot. So since William is a big business boy now, he has a lot to work on. Fazbear Entertainment is growing, and he's working on perfecting the Springlock design since it has its quirks. It's hard to know what his wife is doing at this point. I'm personally a believer of the theory that William was never a good partner, was even abusive to her. I don't think William was always a killer, though I do believe he is a bad person. Well, he is a bad person, but like before he was a murderer, he was an abusive partner and terrible. He was an alcoholic, which becomes worse later. Some people believe that his wife dies at some point, which I don't believe. I don't think she ever dies in this timeline. However, I do believe that they do get divorced at some point, William and his wife. I do believe they get divorced, and that is explained through some things later in the timeline. So an important thing in this game during the 8-bit segments is the Fredbear plush, and this has to do with William being a deadbeat dad, I promise. So this is what little crying child refers to as his closest friend, and it's a little plushie he keeps on his bed. It's the yellow Fredbear, and this is the only one of his father's creations that doesn't scare him, and in fact brings him comfort. I didn't explain this, but the big thing about crying child, why he's crying all the time, is that he's horribly afraid of his father's animatronics and the characters. He hates them, they're scary to him, and they make him cry. So in the 8-bit sections of the game, the plushie's eyes will follow you as you walk around, which is creepy, but it does have a possible explanation. That's not just the eyes are moving. The theory is that the reason their eyes move is because of the cameras. What do I mean by that? Fredbear's watching every single one of your moves, and this is because of William's solution to not being at the house. So to take care of his kids, he installs cameras all over the house to watch them, which is not raising your kids, by the way. You're just watching, so you can't do anything if something bad happens. You're just watching, whatever. And William has also left Michael with the bulk of the childcare responsibilities for the younger brother. And at this point, Michael is a teenage boy, like probably like 14, 15, maybe 16. He's not very old. He is a teenage boy. He doesn't want to be raising his little brother. This becomes, Michael's jerk arc. He's quite mean to crying child, and he likes to use his fear of the animatronics for his own fun. In each of the 8-bit scenes, we see Michael jump scare crying child with a Foxy mask. This is probably because, one, he's a teenage boy wanting to mess around with his younger brother, and he's also just frustrated that his dad has placed, the childcare responsibilities on him. Also, I don't know where the wife is at this point, but no one questioned why she wasn't around. I don't think they're divorced yet at this point. I don't know what she's doing, but okay. Through this fear and through Michael f***ing around and finding out, we get the final 8-bit sequence of FNAF 4. And this is at Fredbear's Family Diner, that first location that William and Henry opened up. This is believed to be Crying Child's birthday party, this event. So Michael is there with a group of friends, and each of them are wearing one of the 4 characters' masks. So you got Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. So each one has a different mask, and they're excited because they get to freak out Crying Child. It's like their final prank on him. To really rub it in, they decide to stick his head in the mouth of the Springlock Fredbear animatronic. Now, if you remember, spring locks will malfunction when wet. As they put his crying face into the Fredbear animatronic, his tears cause the spring locks to fail and therefore crushes his head. Now, you are most definitely familiar with this moment as that Markiplier clip where he goes, "Was that the bite of 87?
Was that the bite of 87?
But this was in fact the bite of 83. This is the bite of 83, and I believe this is the first tragedy within Fazbear Entertainment, the FNAF world. So Crying Child does die from this. It first sends him into a coma, where he ends up not being able to recover. And as he is dying, you can hear Michael apologize to his brother through dialogue. It's debated upon who is talking, because you just see it in Crying Child's perspective. You see it as your pal, the Fredbear plush, talking to you, and with just the dialogue shown as, text. So it's debated upon who says what, but there are color changes in the dialogue, and people have figured that means there's 2 different people. And the last line, I believe, is William talking to Evan through Fredbear, and he says, "I will put you back together."
Connection terminated.
And I believe that's the moment where William snaps and we kind of see the beginning of this mad scientist trying to bring his dead son back to life. So my personal theories for FNAF 4. So one of the things that is argued the most upon in FNAF 4 is when the nightmares take place. Personally, I believe that the first few nights are genuine nightmares that he's having. I do believe that those are dreams. I don't think they're real. Some people think they're actually real, but I believe they're nightmares, and then I believe around like night 4 or 5 is when Crying Child is in a coma. While people were playing, they were spotting like phantom hospital equipment around Crying Child's bed, which, you know, is weird, but signifies that he might actually be in a coma. It would make the most sense to me that it's a mix of both, because particularly I'd like it to match up with the 8-bit sequences. Most of the 8-bit sequences aren't occurring at like the same time as what's happening in the gameplay, but I like to believe that in this game they do. And I also believe that Crying Child's spirit possesses the yellow version of the Fredbear suit, Golden Freddy. I believe that that is Crying Child. I have illustrated a little possession status update. It gets confusing, so I will do an update on who's possessing what when needed. Evan Afton, Crying Child, is now possessing Golden Freddy. Here's a timeline update just to refresh our minds. In the early 80s, William and Henry opened Fredbear's Family Diner, the first Fazbear Entertainment location. And in 1983, Crying Child is bit by Springlock. In 1983, Crying Child is bit by Springlock Freddy and dies. So that's just the entirety of FNAF 4. So we're gonna come back to this location, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. We're here now. We're now talking about it. It's now relevant. After Crying Child's death, Fredbear's Family Diner is closed because of the grief and the tragedy happening at that location. The location that's still open after this is called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's at this location where the designs for the revamps I mentioned occurred. Like, the ones you knew, like the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. This is the original designs. You do see these in the first game. However, the first game doesn't occur for a while. These suits are used, and then you'll see them deteriorated in FNAF 2, but then they get revamped again, and that's what we see in FNAF 1. I hope that makes sense. Which is bad, and we'll get into why later. So these are the 4 characters you know. I did a little drawing of Foxy, Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie. Here you go. So William is starting to test eternal life, or bringing things back to life, you know, all that mad scientist stuff. So either William has noticed that his son's spirit was in the Fredbear suit, or he did some mad scientist stuff, possibly. This is where it gets weird, and everyone has their own opinion, because the science theories make a whole science out of how William does all this, and that's with a substance called remnant, which is what allows souls to stay attached to objects, like the animatronics. Now, this theory makes later events make a little more sense, I guess. And, you know, they add motivation to William killing kids because he needs them to create the remnant. You could also just take the paranormal route, which I think is a little more fun, where, like, if you die touching an animatronic, you possess it. I think that's a little more fun, but it doesn't make sense a little later. So after the events of FNAF 4, William began working to open up a new restaurant with new designs for characters. And this is called Circus Baby's Pizza World. And yeah, that creepy ass doll, that's Circus Baby. Now, he is overcome by grief at this point from losing his son, and he redesigns animatronics and creates a new one called Circus Baby. This story is explained in Sister Location, which is told while we're in a secret bunker, which I'll get. So we're not at the point where Sister Location, the game, occurs. However, there's stories told in that game through 8-bit sequences and dialogue that this is what has happened in the past. And I believe it happens right after FNAF 4 and before the other games. So it's related, but not at the same time. This is where we see the Funtime animatronics, and these are new animatronics that were designed to seem more toy-like, and they're bright and more fun, I guess. I don't know, I think they're really creepy. But this was actually a nefarious plan by William to invent animatronics with the purpose of killing children. Each one has a special claw thing inside of them. They were built to have a hollow stomach so they could lure, grab, and kill a child. So they also had a recognition system where they were able to count how many children were in each room, because they only wanted one because they didn't want anyone else to see. So this was being built in the bunker that I mentioned, and that bunker is under the house in FNAF 4, so that's why that house stays relevant. But yeah, that will be where sister location takes place, but not for a little bit. So this bunker is the home to a bunch of new activities, I guess. William makes his own business adventure called Afton Robotics. This basically is him building animatronics and then renting them to people. I guess they can rent it and have it at their party. It's really not that relevant, but it is something that he was doing. But the bunker was active and kind of like his secret lair. So now we're getting into Elizabeth Afton. Though seemingly Circus Baby's Pizza World was coming together, William had made a vital mistake in his plan. So Circus Baby was made to be based on his daughter. It was inspired by her, and his daughter fell in love with it, and she felt like it was designed for her. To be fair, it was. She wasn't wrong. It was made to look like her and for her to like. William should have thought this one through a little more. It's a little goofy. William, who knew he had built killing machines inside these robots, wanted his daughter to stay away. Well, maybe you shouldn't have designed one just for her then. I'm foreshadowing too much. This part gets me heated. This is so preventable. Well, he should have just not built a claw at all, but whatever. If you wanted to kill children but not your daughter, why would you make one that she likes? I don't know. I'm getting heated. So what happens to Elizabeth? Because I already mentioned that she does die. So on the opening day of Circus Baby's Pizza World, Elizabeth doesn't listen to her father and goes up to Circus Baby, and in bad timing, she was the only one in the room. And in sister location, Circus Baby explains this event herself, actually through dialogue, not through text or just a game. She does explain that I think the quote's something like, "I was acutely aware of how many kids were in the room at a given time, and this was for the purpose of only grabbing one if there was one." And she explains that when the alone child came near her, her stomach opened and brought out ice cream, luring the child in further, and then a claw came out of her stomach and then grabbed her and put her in Circus Baby.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day. What a wonderful day, though. I was in a small room with balloons and a few tables. No one sat at the tables, though, but children would run in and out. Some were afraid of me. Others enjoyed my songs. Music was always coming from somewhere else, down a hall. I would always count the children. I'm not sure why. I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me. 2, then 3, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 2, then none. They usually played together in groups of 2 or 3. I was covered in glitter. I smelled like birthday cake. There were 2, then 3, then 5, then 4. I can do something special. Did you know that? I can make ice cream, although I only did it once. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Something happened when there was 1, a little girl, standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment. Then other children rushed in again, but they couldn't hear her over the sounds of their own excitement. I still hear her sometimes. Why did that happen?
And that child was Elizabeth. So Elizabeth possesses Circus Baby after this. One of the coolest things I think that this did was to confirm that Elizabeth was now possessing Circus Baby. They did something with the eyes. So at first, Circus Baby's eyes are blue. Like before she kills Elizabeth, her eyes are blue. But as soon as she kills Elizabeth, Circus Baby's eyes turn green. And that was kind of William's way of knowing my daughter possessed this robot. This is getting silly. What happened to Circus Baby's Pizza World after William's child mysteriously disappeared after his first one died tragically? So first off, William accidentally killed his own daughter in a plot to kill a random innocent child. Yeah, I doubt he was stable enough to continue this. Second off, I believe that after this tragedy happened, and I'm assuming William immediately shut it down, Henry Emily went to look at the suits and saw that there was a child killing design in them. I believe Henry finds out about this. So the public is told that it closes because of gas leaks. That's supposed to be the reason it closed and why Elizabeth died. Yeah, there were not actually gas leaks at Circus Baby's Pizza World. A child was grabbed with a claw and died. Alright, so let me explain why this ties into sister location if it wasn't clear. So the death of Elizabeth, I believe, happens after FNAF 4 and before FNAF 2. Sister location is, double meaning of the game. Actually pretty clever, I think. So obviously Circus Baby's Pizza World is a sister location of Fazbear Entertainment, so literally the meaning of like a sister location restaurant. But also the word sister was useful because you're playing as Michael in the game, so like you're finding out what happened to your sister, clever. I think that's clever. So again, this is an event that's tied to sister location, but it does not happen during. I'm gonna explain myself because a lot of people probably will disagree with me on where I place Crying Child and Elizabeth's death, but I think it makes the most sense for them, character-wise, especially for William. Crying Child was the first death, I think, because it would make sense that the first death was some type of freak accident and in no way intentional. Like, no one meant for that to happen. No one wanted a child to die. No one intended that the animatronics would kill kids. And no one intended that a child would die and therefore possess the animatronic. So I believe that was the first domino to get William thinking about possessing animatronics. It's like, why else? What else would get him to think that? And then I think Elizabeth would be the second death because that's the second least intentional death, I guess, in a way. Because obviously at this point, William was trying to kill kids, but he did what he could to keep his daughter from getting killed. So this was technically unintentional, not innocent, but unintentional. And I think that makes sense for a second death where he's starting to think, but then therefore causes more pain. And he doesn't directly do the murder. He invented a contraption for murder, but he doesn't do the murder like he does in all of the other things we see. We're doing a possession update. So at this point, Crying Child has possessed Fredbear, Golden Freddy, and Elizabeth Afton has possessed Circus Baby. And I did beautiful drawings for you to see. So I'm giving a timeline update. William and Henry opened the first location in the early 80s. 1983, Crying Child is bit by Springlock Freddy and dies, FNAF 4. And then Elizabeth is killed by Circus Baby. Okay, got it? Good. I believe this is where Henry cuts ties with William. I believe that he sees that William made animatronics with claws with like child killing machines in them. I think this is where he notices it, and he rightfully kicks him out of Fazbear Entertainment because he's like, this man shouldn't be around children. Now, I don't know why you wouldn't report that to like someone. He just lets him go. Henry has the Fazbear name and continues business adventures in said name. this is where I'm going to get in real trouble. I'm going to talk about Midnight Motorist. This is a particularly crazy debated one. But Midnight Motorist, I believe, is where we're seeing William at peak alcoholic. I did mention that he is an alcoholic before, but this gets worse. And I believe at this point you're doing some drunk driving. You do a drunk driving simulator. So he's boozing and cruising in this game. And I believe it's, you know, the pain from losing his kids, and he is going psychotic with his thoughts of bringing them back to life. I think if anything, his curiosity and desires are taking over his grief, because he's not really going through grief because he's like, my kids are still alive in a weird way. I have my own theory of Midnight Motorist, and I mostly agree with Wendigoon. I think he definitely put it in a way that made most sense in the story. So what I think happened in Midnight Motorist is, I believe you're playing as William Afton. He is an orange color in this game, which confused people, but I think he's orange in this game because this is the event that takes place right before his first, like, intentional kill, you know? So, like, this is his last moment of, like, innocence, in a way. I don't think he's innocent, but, like, you know, it's before his first, like, real, like, knifing, like, full-on, like, doing the murdering thing. He later drives up to a place called Junior's, which I believe is a local bar that he drove to get more drunk drove. I think some people think Junior's is another Five Nights at Freddy's location, which would make sense because there's a moment at the door where he goes up there and they're like, you can't be here. And, you know, considering he would have just gotten fired, let go, that would be a reaction that makes sense. It wouldn't make sense if he showed up to a Fazbear's location after doing any murdering at all, so I don't, like, some people put this, like, after he, like, has already killed 5 kids, and, like, if you had, like, killed 5 kids and everyone knew, and you showed up to a Freddy Fazbear location where you killed 5 kids, I don't think they would just be like, you gotta go. You can't be here. Like, that makes no sense. Like, you'd be like, get the fuck out, 911. So I believe that this is a bar, and the whole, you know, you can't be here is because he's so inebriated that they just can't give him more alcohol because that's actually just dangerous. I don't know exactly which one I believe. I think I'm leaning more towards it being a bar because it kind of establishes more of the William abusive, alcoholic, depressed maniac, you know, narrative. Another thing that's debated in Midnight Motorist is when you walk to the backyard of the house, which I'm assuming is the FNAF 4 house. William walks to the back and there's a huge dirt mound there. I think this has to be the grave of Crying Child, personally. I think that this is the grave of Crying Child. Some people believe that this is the grave of William's wife, and that I don't think it makes sense. I don't think she dies. I think they get divorced later. And I think there's more evidence to that. Some people also believe that this is a type of animatronic because apparently there are animatronics that can dig into the ground, but I don't want to get into all that. I think this is just Crying Child's grave. Elizabeth's grave isn't there because she was clawed into the stomach of an animatronic. I'm pretty sure that that's what works in my head, I think. At some point, William goes inside the house and you see someone depressed on the couch, and a lot of people believe that this is Michael, but I don't think it is. I believe that this is Mrs. Afton, William Afton's wife. I believe that this is a grieving mother who is grieving losing her 2 kids and resenting her only one left because he was responsible for the death of one of them. And this would also make sense for one more thing that happens in this game. This is what really nails it all in for me. At the end, William goes to the back of the house and you see a smashed window, and William says he probably went to that place again. Now, I believe that what all of this is that Michael is going out of the house to the Fazbear Entertainment locations. And I think in this effort, Michael is trying to kind of discover what his father's doing. I think he's going and f***ing around with the animatronics. And I think that it's at this point where Michael begins to act as a protagonist figure. So I believe that the smash window, the bedroom, is Michael's, and that's who William's referring to when he says he probably went to that place again. I believe the crying person on the couch is the grieving mother, and I believe the dirt mound is crying child, and I think Elizabeth Afton is just nowhere to be found. Well, she's in the stomach of an animatronic. So now we establish the marionette slash the puppet. I never know what to call it, but the puppet's easier, so I might just do that. So the puppet was created as a security system by Henry Emily to make sure that the kids at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza were safe around the animatronics and at the restaurant, and each kid was given a color-coded wristband, and the puppet would basically watch for each color, keep a count, yada yada. Henry Emily mostly made this puppet with the intention of protecting his daughter Charlie, and after firing William and severing ties and seeing that he was building child killing machines, he wants to protect his daughter from this bitch. Charlie Emily. We're getting into Charlie Emily's story. In FNAF 2, there is a little scene, little 8-bit scene called Take Cake to the Children. And you see a child outside, and I believe that child is Charlie. So Charlie is locked outside of the restaurant, and it's by these kids who were bullies and left her outside. Like, what jerks? Like, that's so mean. It's so sad. Her story's so sad. Like, she's just bullied, and then we see a purple car come out, which, you know, is William Afton, and it's at this point where he walks up to her and you see her character turn gray. She dies. He kills her. He kills Charlie. William kills Charlie Emily. Oh my god, like, this poor child, like, was bullied and then just gets murdered. That's crazy. How can you do— that's so bad. But the security puppet wasn't able to protect Charlie because it was locked inside and she was locked outside. So the puppet failed at what it was created to do. Now, why did William do that? As I established before, Henry believed that William was gonna find a way to get revenge, and he was indeed correct, but I think that this was a spontaneous decision by William. It's hard because a lot of things that William does are really calculated, but I do think that this was him seeing an opportunity and snapping. Because I believe that Take Cake to the Children, the night that Charlie is murdered by William, occurs on the same night as Midnight Motorist. I think it's the same night. I believe that he's drunk driving and then he kills Charlie. I believe this is him drunk in a rage and going crazy. I believe this is him for real snapping. This causes this location to shut down immediately, obviously. So Charlie does possess the puppet. This is told through a security puppet 8-bit minigame in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. So we see a lifeless child outside in an alley, which is so messed up. William left her body outside a dumpster. Like, it's next to trash. That's insane. But in this, we see the security puppet crawling on the ground, sad and, you know, a failure. And the puppet goes up to Charlie and lies down with her, sad that he has failed. And it is at this moment where Charlie possesses the puppet. Now, was William intentional with her possessing the puppet? So at this point, William is clearly testing the idea that, you know, those who die by an animatronic will end up possessing it, whether you think via remnant or some spiritual meaning. He probably assumed that she'd end up in one, but he was outside and it was raining, so he may have believed that it wouldn't be possible. He's usually, again, like, he's usually very careful about details, but just everything about this seemed messy and opportunistic. Even though he did not get caught for this murder, though Henry is nearly certain that it is William, and he's correct. Possession update. Crying Child is possessing Golden Freddy. Elizabeth Afton is possessing Circus Baby, and Charlie is possessing the puppet / the marionette, whatever. Timeline update. First location, FNAF 4. Elizabeth dies. Charlie is killed. A new Freddy Fazbear Pizza location is open at this point, and this is like a new and improved one. All of the older suits still exist, but they're kept in a back room and they're like hella deteriorated. So we got like the original Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, Foxy, Springlock Bonnie, and Springlock Freddy all in the back. But the ones used in this location are these new toy animatronics. So they got Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, Mango, Balloon Boy, and the puppet. So weird thing about the toy animatronics is that they were programmed with like some smart feature. Henry established this because of William, so he was really paranoid and put in a ton of safety measures after his daughter was murdered. So all of their eyes have a facial recognition feature and access to a criminal database, so they can recognize criminals via face recognition, which, can we even do that today? Like they were doing this in the 80s, that's crazy. I guess this could be considered sci-fi at some points, but this will come into play when we talk about the aggression that these animatronics have, because I personally don't believe that they're possessed at all. I think they're being manipulated, and the facial recognition thing does not help. So what happens after the opening of this location? Though William had been kept from going near any of the locations, he somehow got a job as the daytime security guard to gain access to the animatronics. You're able to see him wearing a security badge in some mini games. So this was him, and this was something he did, but he just went unrecognized, became a security guard at this new location. He wanted to do this so he could have access to the animatronics so he could experiment on them more, you know, specifically the whole capturing life inside them thing. So I believe it's at this time where the most important thing in the lore happens. This is probably the part that most people be like, oh, okay, so that's like this. One at a time, William starts to go on a killing spree. He lures 5 kids one at a time back into the room where the old suits are. He uses the Springlock Bonnie suit to lure kids in, so he'll put it on and convince them to go to the back room with him, and then he'll kill them. He places their bodies inside of the old suits, so that would be the old Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, Foxy, and then last the Springlock Freddy. And this is known as the missing children's incident. Probably the most agreed upon thing, though the timing, I don't know, is agreed upon. Did William get caught for this? Kind of. So in the first game, we see newspaper clippings that say that the suspect for the missing children incident was taken into police custody. Literally everyone knew that it was William because there were security cameras that showed him being the last person to be seen with all of the kids. But apparently they couldn't find the bodies. It had to be stinky. It had to be stinky. Could they not? They were in like rotting mascot suits. Like you couldn't whatever. They couldn't arrest him because they couldn't find their bodies. They couldn't I don't know. Like, but that's what happened. He didn't get arrested. Or like, he did get arrested. But he didn't go to jail. He didn't get charged at all. But everyone just knows he did it at this point. So the children do possess these animatronics, and through mini games, it's explained that the puppet is the one that attaches the souls of the children to the animatronics. And I guess this could either be a metaphorical, way, being like the puppet was giving them life in some type of way, or if it's actually a thing that happened. It's kind of unclear, but the puppet is established as sort of a protector, life giver, which is what the puppet was made for in the first place. So that's what that establishes. I don't think it really matters if that's actually what happened or not, but it's a cool little moment. This also doesn't really matter too much, but there are names of the missing children, or the children that William killed, and it is known who they possess. So a kid named Gabriel possesses Freddy, Fritz possesses Foxy, Susie possesses Chica, Jeremy possesses Bonnie, and Cassidy possesses Springlock Freddy. I know I mentioned that Crying Child is also possessing Springlock Freddy, and that's true. Both of their souls are possessing Springlock Freddy, which is like a double meaning in a type of way, because the Springlock has like the 2 features, the animatronic or mascot, and then it's also 2 different spirits, It's poetic. Cassidy is also known as the one you should not have killed. I mean, he shouldn't have killed any of them. Duh. That would be known as his most gruesome victim. The grossest, the just worst one. Alright, so possession update. Evan and Cassidy possess Golden Freddy. Elizabeth possesses Circus Baby. Charlie possesses the puppet. Fritz possesses Foxy. Gabriel possesses Freddy. Susie possesses Chica. Jeremy possesses Buddy. Get it? Got it. Good. Okay, timeline. First location, FNAF 4. Elizabeth dies. Charlie dies. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the revamped one. Missing children's incident. Now we're entering the second game. So this is the next game to come out in the timeline, but the second to be released. Was FNAF 4 the last game oh my god, yeah. The rest of that stuff is told through cutscenes. I just got to the second game mentioned. That's crazy. There's a change in mechanics in this one, just because it's a sequel, and it's just slightly different from the first one. Each animatronic is deterred away from your door. Some are deterred by light, so sometimes you'll flash your flashlight into the hallway or the sides. Or some are deterred by a Freddy mask that you put on your head. This game gets very rhythmic. This is personally my favorite to play and watch, because while playing it felt really rhythmic to be like, okay, camera, wind, camera, mask immediately, light, light, light. It becomes very rhythmic and it's very satisfying. That's my favorite one of the games, and I think it's very fun. If you're interested in playing the games, I recommend trying that one. So the puppet, which is now Charlie, is particularly important in this game. And when I mentioned the music box, that is for the puppet. You have to keep it wound up or else she'll get you, like, immediately. That's like your number one priority in the game. In this game is mentioned a guy named Jeremy Fitzgerald. So this is actually who you're playing as. And I think there's a lot of theories about Jeremy and how he's significant to the plot, but I kind of think Jeremy's just a guy. I don't know, I couldn't find a way that he would fit more into the story or have any mention that really added to the plot. Yeah, it gets a little too complicated and I don't really care about those details. So I just consider this guy just a poor victim who took a security job at a silly little restaurant, and then the animatronics tried to kill him. So as with a lot of the games, a lot of the story and narrative is told through the phone guy. You've probably heard people talk about phone guy before. But the first night, he just welcomes you with standard stuff like the hello, welcome to the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, you know.
Hello and welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Standard. But then it gets really deep on night 4 when phone guy informs you that there is currently an investigation on the location and that the location will be closing for a few days.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. I don't know. I want to emphasize, though, that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen sometimes. It'll all get sorted out in a few days. Just keep an eye on things and I'll keep you posted. Just as a side note, though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics tonight if you can. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems. We're not sure. But the characters have been acting very unusual, almost aggressive toward the staff. They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare.
And then on night 5, he tells you that the entire establishment is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out.
Oh, hey, good job, night 5. Keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees.
Then on night 6, the phone guy asks you why you're even at the restaurant. He says the place has been closed down because someone snuck in, put on one of the yellow suits, and then none of the animatronics were acting right.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
I believe that the missing children's incident happened before FNAF 2 and that William was attempting to try again. Or at this point, he started to mess around with the animatronics that had the dead kids in it. I believe that's more likely. I think missing children's incident is actually William's last time killing. So I believe the deaths are Crying Child, Elizabeth, Charlie, and then the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 8. I believe that there are 8 victims in this story. Oh, there's more victims, but I meant like murder victims. So why are they not acting right? So there are other theories where I mentioned people think that William killed 5 more kids, I guess just cuz. I don't believe this is the case. We do know that all of the children who have died, with the exception of Elizabeth, are at this location. So the suits that are being possessed are the old decaying ones in the storage room. That's where they're hidden. The puppet is also at this location. And I think it's possible that the possessed animatronics are manipulating the security system in the toy animatronics that I mentioned before that Henry set up in the toys. So I don't think they're actually alive, the toy ones. I think they're being manipulated by the possessed animatronics, specifically the puppet. Another factor is that the security guard uniform you're wearing is the same one that William wore when he killed the kids. So even more incentive for them to want to kill you because they believe you're the person that killed them. So I have a weird tangent about Mangle. I believe I learned about this theory through MatPat. I'll keep it brief. It was believed that right before William's killing spree that he killed a dog. So before he killed the 5 children, he killed a dog to test the animatronic thing with a dog. And this dog was owned by Susie, who would later end up possessing Chica. He killed this dog as like a test possession, and I believe that this is what's possessing Mangle. And the reason this is believed is because Mangle is the only animatronic that walks on all 4s, and there's other mannerisms that hint at Mangle not exactly being possessed by a human, which is interesting. But like, why the fuck would he kill a dog? You know, I can excuse kids, but dogs, that's where I draw the line. No, I'm kidding. That's like politics nowadays. This also helped William lure Susie because I believe Susie was the first one of the children killed. He was able to use her dog dying to be like, oh, he's not dead, you can see him again. And that's how he was able to lure her and why she was the first victim. So this is when we finally get to the bite of 87. So this event was first alluded to in the first FNAF game. The phone guy at FNAF 1 explains that this was a event in which one of the animatronics bit an employee's head, and this resulted in his frontal lobe being completely bit out. I don't know. The stranger thing is that the phone guy mentions that the guy survived this bite. But as Wendigoon said, it can't really be assumed that he lived very well or for very long.
But then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe.
So I agree with you there, Goon. So who was the victim of this bite? The victim of this bite was none other than Jeremy Fitzgerald, the security guard you're playing as in FNAF 2. It is believed that after the 5th night in this game, it might actually be after the 6th night, Jeremy ended up taking a morning shift because the phone guy asks that you do one final task, and that's running a birthday party in the day.
We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay?
At this shift, Jeremy is given a purple vest to signify he's part of the security, and you know, that's what William was wearing when he killed them. So since the animatronics have the facial recognition and have been possessed by the victims of a security guard, they attack him, they bite him. But yeah, I believe Jeremy Fitzgerald is the victim of the bite of 87, and I believe he has no other further plot relevance. I don't think he possesses anything. Oh wait, no, because he doesn't die. He's fine. He's fine! So after getting through night 6, you're able to play a night 7. Okay, so this is where it changes security guards, and you become Fritz Smith. So after Jeremy gets bit, Fritz Smith comes in for one night A security guard comes in for one night. Who would do that? Well, I can tell you. If you can defeat the night with all of the animatronics on the highest difficulty, which I believe is 1020, you get a check meant for someone named Fritz Smith. I believe that Fritz Smith is an alias that Michael Afton used to investigate the horrors of his father. I believe this is him continuing his exploration in his father's horrors. This is like his first real adventure as a protagonist in the story. And at this point, the restaurant is completely on lockdown because of the investigation and the bite. It's gotta be him, because who else would work just one day? And I want to believe that there was intention and character here. I'm pretty sure my placement for the missing children incident is controversial, so let me explain. The incident has to happen right before the events of FNAF 2, because Phone Guy tells us there was a security guard before us being the second, and that person had to be William, because we know he poses as a security guard to get access to the animatronics. The Phone Guy also said that during the lockdown that no one is allowed in or out, especially any previous employees. The restaurant's also at its grand reopening, and William could not have worked there for long before us, so I doubt he did it in the past location while they were still in use. He had to do it while they were being stored in the back room for parts. It makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, timeline update. First location, Crying Child, aka FNAF 4, that thing. Elizabeth dies. Charlie dies. Revamped Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens. Missing Children incident, FNAF 2, and the Bite of 87, okay? Now we're on to the first game. Oh my god. So, you're probably familiar with the mechanics of this game. It's classic, like point and click. You close the door, you look at the camera, you check the light, you honk the nose. A new and improved location is again opened. We are now in the year 1993, so a little bit of a time jump. It's not the biggest one in this. It is at this location that the old models where the dead bodies were in are remodeled from their previous decaying, stinky state. Again, children are possessing these, so we already know how that's gonna go. So the name of the security guard in this game, in the entirety of this game, is Mike Schmidt. So as we saw in Night 7 of FNAF 2, Michael had started to actively venture to explore his father's evils. And this is Michael continuing that adventure. I believe, Mike. If it's not Fritz Smith, it's definitely Mike Schmidt is Michael Afton. It's gotta be. But he avoids the rejection of, the Afton last name, obviously. But he didn't have to change his first name. Okay, why Mike Schmidt is Michael Afton? I think this is one of the most satisfying parts of the plot for me, for both character reasons and consistency. I think the story becomes exciting when a clear protagonist emerges, even when it's not where you expect it. But it's a clear protagonist, a son trying to solve the wrongs of his father. Second, there's a bit that happens in both the first game and this game. Both Fritz Smith and Mike Schmidt both have odor as a reason they were fired on their pink slips. I think maybe tampering with the electronics too. Yeah, so I think kind of hinted that this is the same person because they were fired for doing the same things. There are hints of the story in FNAF 1. Whether at first intentional, I highly doubt this was intentional when it first started, but looking back, it's kind of satisfying how it does tie together. So since this was the first game released, there were nowhere near as many details as they are now, so everyone was just kind of grabbing air to put this story together when it first came out. But now knowing things, there are cool moments. I do like when the security guard will hallucinate, the face of the Golden Freddy, and it will just say, "It's me." Since now we know that Crying Child has possessed Golden Freddy and you are playing as Michael Afton, it's pretty satisfying to know that it's most likely a younger brother talking to his older brother that was responsible for his death, which is a little creepy, but also kind of narratively satisfying. So here's a timeline update. First, Fazbear Entertainment location. Crying Child dies. Elizabeth dies. Charlie dies. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens. 1987, the revamped one. Missing Children's incident. FNAF 2 and the Bite of 87. Then FNAF 1. So after the events of FNAF 1, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closes and William goes there to discreetly experiment with the animatronics, and this is something that's learned through the 8-bit scenes in FNAF 3. During those cutscenes, we see him attempting to disassemble the animatronics, you know, the ones with the kids' bodies, and he is bringing their parts to the bunker to experiment on the remnant or oh my god. Experiment with the different animatronic pieces that are now possessed. So as of right now, William is the only one aware of this bunker, I'm pretty sure, and this is where everything is stored, like Circus Baby, all the the claw animatronics, yeah, that's where all those are. So he's bringing everything back. The spirits are mad at him, so more events in the FNAF 3 cutscenes tell us that William was successful at disassembling all of the animatronics. However, in the last cutscene, we see William return just one last time to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And you see the spirits as simply just ghosts. I guess for this moment they've disconnected themselves from their vessels. I don't know, but they're spirits now. And you see them begin to attack William. And in this very last scene, we see the spirits chase him. He's scared. He's got like a knife and he's like running away from them. And he thinks it's a great idea to hide in a suit to get away with them. So to do this, he hides in the Springlock Bonnie suit, which is the suit he used when luring the kids and when he killed them. So he thought that would be good to hide in to scare them. However, we're getting to the second malfunction of the Springlock, and since they have aged, the spring locks are now kind of deteriorated and old. So the spring locks do burst, and this crushes William Afton inside this Springlock Bonnie suit, and he dies. So, yeah, William Afton dies, but if you know anything about this game, is anyone ever really dead? No! This part I think is really funny. I don't think this is ever actually confirmed, but I just want to believe that this is true. So after all of this, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza cannot last as a business, and this is when it just all gets shut down for a very long time. So Henry Emily scouts the building one last time and ends up finding William, who is crushed in the Springlock Bonnie suit, so there's blood everywhere, it's gross. And in the most metal way possible, Henry decides to just wall off the room, like just puts a wall there, so he's trapped, like four-walled, stuck in that room as Spring Bonnie. And he stays in there for 30 years. 30 years he's stuck in that dead on the floor in a walled off room in a Springlock suit. But William is determined to not die. He is determined to not die, so he hangs on the whole time. Let's do a possession update. Evan Afton and Cassidy are possessing Fredbear / Golden Freddy. Elizabeth Afton is possessing Circus Baby. Charlie is possessing the puppet. William is possessing Springtrap. Fritz is possessing Foxy, Gabriel, Freddy, Susie, Chica, Jeremy, Bonnie. Okay, get it, got it good. And, okay, timeline update. First location, Crying Child dies, Elizabeth dies, Charlie dies. Revamped New Pizza, 1987. Missing Children's Incident, where William kills 5 kids. FNAF 2 and The Bite of 87. FNAF 1 and William dies and possesses Springtrap. Alright, so now that bunker I mentioned is finally going to get its moment. It will finally have its payoff. Now that William's dead corpse is in Spring Bonnie and walled, he had that bunker thing, he built it under the FNAF 4 house. I'm pretty sure some point before the Missing Children's Incident, I believe that William, I didn't put this in, but I believe that William and his wife get divorced. And there's like turmoil there. And the wife stays stays in a new house, and William stays in the FNAF 4 house, or vice versa. But I think he stays in the FNAF 4 house because that's where the bunker is. So they still own that house, and Mrs. Afton has a different house. Well, I guess she's not Mrs. Afton anymore, but I believe they're divorced by now. But he would still rent out animatronics somehow, but this was basically like his mad science lab. This is where the fun time animatronics were, the ones with the claws that were child murdering. In the case of his death, William left Michael instructions on how to access this bunker and what to do with it. And that's where we get to sister location. I know I've mentioned this game a lot already because this game was actually very important in establishing a lot of the plot. But when you're playing that game, those events occur. So this was the 5th game of the series to be released. To explain the mechanics briefly, I haven't played this game, but you're playing as a person who discovered an underground bunker, and it's these animatronics, and you're supposed to make sure they're behaving normally and just making sure everything's going about all right. This goes very wrong, if you could have guessed. Unlike the other games, each night is pretty different from the others. There's a few things that happen a few times, like you check them, you can shock them, but there's a few different things to do each night, and it's more just objective based than time. Instead of it being timed, you just have to finish a certain objective. We're getting back to Circus Baby. So Circus Baby's the big character in this game. So as we know from earlier, Circus Baby is currently being possessed by Elizabeth. Again, this allows for the double meaning I mentioned earlier, where it's telling the story of a past sister location, but you're also playing as Michael, who's reconnecting and finding out what happened to his sister. So it's like the odd story of siblings reuniting after the death of the other. Circus Baby first appears to act friendly to Michael, but in reality, she is just manipulating you this whole game. Now, I want to discuss the theories about Ballora, and I feel like there's not too much going on here. So at this point, I do believe that William and his wife are divorced, and I believe that Ballora is supposed to be based on William's wife. And I think it's him being heartbroken after the divorce. Ballora is kind of his way of coping with not really being with her anymore, so he builds a robot reminiscent of her. I don't think Ballora is actually possessed. I again think it's a case of the other possessed animatronics manipulating animatronics, if that makes sense. At this point, William did disassemble all of the animatronics in the old location and was probably using those parts with the remnant in it to experiment with animatronics in this location. So I think it's the same possessed things, but just put into new forms. So Ballora could be possessed, but I don't think she is. So what is going on here? So most of the animatronics in the bunker are possessed, and Circus Baby is not alone. In fact, I'm pretty sure every person who has died except William is in this bunker, because William had dismantled the possessed animatronics and utilized their endoskeletons in experiments, and they're now trapped in this bunker. So William had intended for Michael to just keep the animatronics under control, maybe figure out what to do, but the animatronics are spending each of their nights manipulating him into putting them back together, letting them walk free, yada yada. Poor Michael. He's just being manipulated, and to make it worse, for the final part of the plan, Circus Baby tricks Michael into going into a terrible room. And this room is called the scooping room. And it's as gross as it sounds. So the point of the scooping room is to scoop the endoskeletons out of the animatronics, which they have been doing one by one to each of the animatronics, I guess to destroy them. But the animatronics have assembled themselves into one big animatronic named Ennard. So all of these spirits are in this one animatronic body, and you see the face of Ennard as Michael is in the machine and they scoop him. So a human being gets scooped. It gets crazier. So he lives from after being scooped. He survives. And yeah, this is the moment of the lore where I think most people struggle to suspend their disbelief. You know what? I can accept the whole possessed animatronics things, but getting your guts scooped and living, that's where I draw the line. But it's pretty clear that this is what happened, so I can't even argue it. So Ennard, again, contains everyone who has died except for William, so all the kids. Ennard, this Ennard fellow, proceeds to enter Michael's body through the part that has been scooped and decides to live as him. This is because they couldn't just try to escape as like a robot. Like, who would let that happen? And Circus Baby has this moment where she's like, well, if we looked like you, we could go outside or something like that. They just wanted to take over his body so they could escape and live as a person. That goes. It happens. At the end of Sister Location, you see a now scooped and stuffed Michael strolling around the neighborhood. And he's like, da, 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 da. But then it slowly shows him deteriorating. His skin turns purple, and a lot of people thought this was William because he turns purple, but this is in fact Michael. But he's deteriorating because he did like die. He got scooped. But the explanation is that from being scooped and from having the stuff in his body, the remnant kept his soul attached to his dead body, so he is just like a living corpse. But then Michael becomes too purple, and his rotting body just can't take it anymore, and he vomits Ennard up, and you see Ennard go into a drain into like the sewers. I'm not making this up. This is the part that's I get taken out a little bit here. It's a little weird, but yeah, I can't really explain this. But he survived because the remnant. I guess I have to just accept that. The whole science aspect of this lore is really funny to me. It's so goofy. He's just a soul attached to a dead corpse now. That's almost worse than being stuck in a rickety animatronic, in my opinion. But timeline update. First location, Crying Child dies, Elizabeth dies, Charlie dies, revamped 87 location, Missing Children, FNAF 2 in the Bite of 87, FNAF 1, William dies and possesses Springtrap, and then sister location happens. Okay, now is where we... If it wasn't confusing enough, we have like a 30-year time jump. The next year we see in this game is actually the year of our Lord 2023. I think it's about 30 years because Sister Location happened sometime in the early 90s, once Michael is like a young adult. So now we are getting to FNAF 3. This is the third game in the series to be released, and also my least favorite. You're playing as the late-night security guard of a horror attraction based on the atrocities of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. And on the second night, they say they discovered an old animatronic, and each night that animatronic torments you, and you must use sounds and maintenance to keep him from entering your office. So the story. So like I said before, Fazbear Entertainment has become sort of a folklore. Therefore, people come to this new location. It is called Fazbear's Fright, as sort of like a haunted house attraction. And this is built in the same building that William Afton died in. This is like built like in Utah, like in one of the old locations. He's here. He's waiting in the back room. Foreshadowing. So what happens in the game? Like I said, William's death is explained through the 8-bit cutscenes in this game, but those occur before the events of the game. This isn't like a FNAF 4 happens around the same time. It's more like Sister Location and this kind of are years later, but explain the events that led up to the gameplay we see here. Not at the same time, but definitely correlated. The first night of the game is tame. It's mostly to get you to understand the mechanics and your office and what you gotta do. Nothing tries to get you, I don't think. Night 2 is when they first get scary. The phone guy announces to you that they found one of the old decrepit suits in the back, and it is none other than Squilliam Afton Springtrap that is now just being let out. Who let the dogs out? The rest of the game is William, now Springtrap, trying to get into your office, and he's led through your office through mostly noises, which happens when there's malfunctions in the office, like the air vent, which you gotta do or else you like suffocate or hallucinate. The cameras and audio issues, you have to kind of reload it. I feel like a lot of this game is really random and a lot of it's based on luck. I liked that there's a lot of emphasis on the camera, which is nice, but I feel like it's a little too much, where the strat is just to kind of check the cameras to make sure he stays in the room you want him to, by playing a little like balloon boy. Hi.
Hello.
So it's not very exciting, and it's just him trying to get you. There are other jump scares, but William is the only thing that can get you, like kill you. So the things that can jump scare you but not kill you are the phantoms, and this is one of the ways the game tries to mess you up. So these animatronics are not real and can't kill you, but usually when you're looking through the cameras, they will be in certain different places. They're kind of hard to see, and that's purposeful, that you have to like actually pay attention to make sure. If you look at them for too long, they'll like jump at you and cause a problem. And when a problem is caused, it causes the red lights to blink and it to go which brings Squilliam Aft into your room, and that's not good. And they do spice things up, but it's a little annoying, and I kind of just wish they had like one other thing that could kill you, but I get like narratively like why it would make sense, but this is my least favorite game. It both looks not very nice, and also it's just the gameplay is confusing, and I kind of just felt like I was doing it until I won. I don't know, I never like got in a groove like I did with FNAF 2. If you manage to beat this game, I'm pretty sure that means including the 6th night, you get a special end. The security guard you're playing as sets the entire building on fire with the end goal of killing Springtrap. And apparently this is established at some point, but I don't know when. But I'll mention now that Remnant can be destroyed with fire or like heat. He was hoping that it would defeat the Remnant and fully just Springtrap, you know? And, you know, you're probably asking, what crazy person would keep working here? And I don't know if I'm getting stale, but it's Michael Afton. We already know this person, and he's like a grown man now, but he's still purple. He's still just a corpse with a soul attached to it. Okay. He came to finally destroy his father, and this was his attempt to end it all. So Michael's kind of objective, or what he was doing, is he was trying to follow his father everywhere, or trying to follow everything and then destroy it all, and that was his mistake. He was trying too hard to follow and like go to them, and we'll see why this is the wrong way to go about it. Timeline update. First location, crying child dies, Elizabeth dies, Charlie dies. Revamp 87 location, missing children's incident, FNAF 2 and Bite of 87, FNAF 1. William dies and possesses Springtrap, sister location, FNAF 3. Now we're on to FNAF Pizza Simulator. So this was the 6th game to be released, and this is a game that was marketed to seem like a silly little tycoon simulator game where you design your own like Fazbear Entertainment location. But a lot of the gameplay is way scarier than like what met the eye. I'm pretty sure this game was completely free. It was just meant as a little like fan service, I guess. I don't know. But many of the tasks you do besides setting up your own restaurant are like pretty dark. So another restaurant. Why is there another restaurant? This was opened by Henry, actually. He decides to open another Freddy Fazbear's restaurant, and everyone's like, whoa, what the hell are you doing? Like, why? And, you know, like, why would he do this? The establishment's known for death horror, and especially for you, but Henry is aware of this, and he is calculated. But for now, he is just running it as a normal place. So I don't think I have any suspense anymore. I doubt you guys feel suspense anymore, but yeah, the security guard is once again Michael. I know it's a broken record, but I do like the narrative that Michael is the one just chasing everything he can to try to destroy the wrongs of his father. I think it's satisfying. And, you know, he's still deteriorating from being a soul attached to a dead corpse. He's still pursuing. He's pushing on. So the devil works hard, but Michael Afton works harder. I have a hard time establishing whether I believe Michael knew the intentions of this restaurant or not. I believe he didn't and was just on his journey chasing everything around, but I think he slowly learned what was going on, and once he did, was like fully on board. So one of the big mechanics in this game is salvaging animatronics. This is first presented to you as like kind of a mysterious and just creepy thing that happens in the game, but at the end of the day, an animatronic will just show up. They'll be like it was in the dumpster or whatever, and the guy on the phone tells you that you can use them to salvage parts and it gives you more money. If you're familiar with the games, you will recognize all these animatronics. There is Molten Freddy, which is a restyle of Ennard. Ennard changed itself to be like a molten like Freddy, like a stringy endoskeleton with like a Freddy head. And also at some point, Ennard had kicked Circus Baby Elizabeth out of Ennard because I think she was too loyal to her dad, and they were like, you gotta go. Elizabeth rebuilt herself as Scrap Baby, which is like a scrappy version of Circus Baby, who's terrifying, by the way. But there's also Springtrap and the puppet, who you don't see in the salvaging, but I'll get to that. So this is the most important feature in all the gameplay. You have to do this. You have to salvage all of them if you want the real ending. And the thing is, salvaging all of them makes the game harder because at the end of the day, you get a little point and click thing where you like need to get your tasks done on your computer and they're trying to get you. So the more you salvage, the more people are trying to get you. It does make the game harder to play it right, but that's the cost. But you do have the option to either salvage them or throw them back outside, but you will not get an accurate ending if you disregard any of them. So back to the puppet, you never actually find the puppet to salvage, but this is because the puppet is harder to trick into coming to the trap that Henry is setting up. So therefore I'm sorry, this part's so funny to me. He builds a bear named Lefty, who's just like this fucked up animatronic bear. I don't know what about Lefty is supposed to lure the puppet, but he says that Lefty was built with the express purpose of getting the puppet to it. I think maybe because it's so fucked up that the puppet wants to save it. I don't know. Another thing about Lefty is that when you put him out in the restaurant, like, that he can interact with kids, he, like, mega raises your risk for lawsuits, which you can and do get in this game, which is really funny to me. Everything about Lefty is just hilarious to me. I think it's mostly because I loved Markiplier's playthrough of this, where he just loved Lefty and it was the funniest thing ever to him. So it's also just funny to me. Like, I look at Lefty, I'm like, that's so silly. Like, I can't believe they did that. They bring back the classic gameplay. I mentioned this. So besides the simulator and salvaging animatronics, you sit in a little office and you make sure everything's in check. You order like cups, plates, you know, work things, whatever. You finish everything you need for your business, and it's point and click. You do a little task on the computer. You gotta turn it off if you hear shit. You check the vents that are right next to you for some reason. I don't know why this office just has 2 huge vents next to you, but, you know, I'm assuming this isn't very well built, because I'm assuming a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza doesn't have a great budget, because why would anyone invest in that? So this gameplay does get harder the more you salvage animatronics, because you're bringing more of them into the building. Things really escalate on the last night. If you've salvaged all of the animatronics, you get the final cutscene. So Circus Baby has held on to some weird attachment to her father, who was the one who resulted in her death, by the way, but she wants to like continue his plan. like avenge him, and she has this weird allegiance to him. But she gives Michael a speech about how he fell into the trap of the animatronics, and this includes her saying how they've gathered them into a place where, you know, they can finally do what they're meant to do, and she says, "I will make you proud, Daddy," and yeah, it's creepy. I'm not a fan.
Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
It is at this point where Henry cuts that off.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth.
Bow, 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 bow. He just cuts her off and he's like, "Sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth," or whatever. But it is this moment where Henry reveals that it's in fact not Michael who's been tricked, but it was all of the animatronics who came to the building that were fooled. Henry gives a speech about his intentions and his plan and how it's all come together. He gives a speech about how they're all in one place and they can finally end everything. And as he is explaining this, you see in the corner the temperature is rising, signifying that Henry is burning the building down, and he has sealed everything, knowing that him and Michael would say. So no one's getting in or out of this burning building. Everything's been sealed. Because Henry knew, I'm burning down with all of this, and Michael will probably also want to burn down with all of this. This is kind of like it, like they can die here. Which is sad, but a little satisfying. But Henry takes time to speak to all of the souls individually, in a way. He mentions that there's somewhere better waiting for them afterwards, that they will no longer know suffering in these suits, and he gives a special acknowledgement to his daughter, saying he knew that she was going to be a protector, and that she would be hard to catch. That's where he explains Lefty. It is a sweet moment where a father finally gets closure in a dark way, and particularly I love this Henry speech. In fact, I think this monologue that Henry gives is one of the best in media. That's strong, but like, oh my god, does it go crazy. So here are some of my favorite quotes from it. "And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you." Another one is, "For most of you, I believe there's peace and perhaps more waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend." Like, chills. Like, smoke his ass. Like, goes insanely hard.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
Alright, we're gonna do a timeline update. We're nearing the end. First Fazbear location. Crying child dies, Elizabeth dies, Charlie dies. Revamped 87 location. Missing children's incident. FNAF 2 and Bite of 87. FNAF 1. William dies and possesses Springtrap. Sister location. FNAF 3 and FNAF Pizza Simulator, where everything burns down and everyone's gone. Dead. Kaput. Everyone dies. Henry dies. Michael dies. William dies. They're all freed from the torture. Everything's been wrapped up. And with that, the story on Earth ends. The spirits are free from Earth. Everyone dies, but they died knowing that everything was done. And everything they endured was done. So, in my opinion, this is one of the... Oh, it's so satisfying. This is one of the most satisfying endings I've seen. There's like no loose ends here, no doubts, just complete peace knowing that the torment is done. However, I'm a little kidding. But some people genuinely believe that there is more. I do, to an extent. This is where we get into Ultimate Custom Night, and this was the 7th FNAF game to be released, and this was supposed to be a final hurrah, the last game. This was supposed to be the last game. Now, I know this one's definitely free, but it's a free play game, and you can select out of like a ton of characters the difficulty you would like on each. You can even select which ones you want to play with. You can choose not to play with some of them. It's just basically an ultimate like customizable night as a fan favorite type of thing where fans could, you know, play with a bunch of different characters. So it was like fan circle jerk, you know? I think it's cute. I don't know how, but people have defeated this game with every character on the highest difficulty. And, you know, there's not much that alludes to there being a bigger story here, but there are a few little moments, which it's so little, but it tells kind of a lot, which I think is really interesting. And I think this was a great way to follow up an otherwise complete story. If you're able to defeat this game with everyone on the highest difficulty, you will get a clip, a little cutscene of Golden Freddy limp on the ground just twitching. What does that mean? If you remember, the spirits that are possessing Golden Freddy are Cassidy and Crying Child. Now, there's two ways you could perceive this, I guess. So, Cassidy's known as the one you should not have killed, which alludes to her death being the most gruesome of all. Crying Child was the first death and might have vengeance towards his father. His death was an accident, but he was left to be an animatronic for decades because of his father. So what I'm getting to with this is that in this game, you are playing as William Afton, which means that Ultimate Custom Night is purgatory, like his own personal hell and him being tortured for being evil. What's alluded to with the Golden Freddy twitching is that the spirit possessing Golden Freddy is the one that won't let go of vengeance towards William and is just torturing him forever and ever. So this game is in fact taking place in the afterlife. It gets oddly spiritual, but I think it's actually kind of really interesting and satisfying. I can see Evan being the one torturing his father, but I really do believe that it's Cassidy because she was the most gruesome of all of them and seemed to be the most aggressive and full of vengeance. So that is what I believe. I believe that was Cassidy. That doesn't mean they couldn't be working together, but I personally believe that it was just Cassidy, and after all Crying Child went through, I just want him to rest, honestly. I want to know that he's not still in hell torturing his father. I want peace for him. I want peace for all the kids. Alright, little details in the game that further make this narrative interesting. So sometimes when you die, the animatronics will kind of say things like taunting you. It's a lot of stuff reminding him that he can't escape, or being like, I used to be scared of you, but not anymore.
Seeing you powerless is like music to me.
I am a burning reminder of your misdeeds. This is a nightmare that you won't wake from.
I will never let you rest.
Arr, I came for ye booty. That be treasure, you know.
Kind of stuff like that, taunting him, kind of reminding him that he's stuck in this hell. And there's also this character named Old Man Consequences, and if you just play with him, I think it's the little fishing thing that appears on your screen. If you just play with him, you get a cutscene, and in that cutscene you see a silhouette of him fishing, and you see a silhouette of Golden Freddy, and Old Man Consequences tells Freddy that he needs to let go and rest his soul, basically telling the spirit that's torturing William to move on. It's not like huge narrative details, but kind of, I think the subtlety of adding the hell narrative is really cool. So personally, that's where I'm going to decide to leave off the timeline. I'm going to explain why I don't want to include the other games, because I have watched videos on how Help Wanted and Security Breach are connected, but I just haven't been given a good reason to care about those games or the story they tell, and I'm just kind of petty that they ended things so perfectly and just threw it all away. The Help Wanted lore almost had the potential to be cool. I mean, if you know, you know, but it's basically like something about William's consciousness being uploaded and then into this computer, and then he becomes like Glitch Trap, and then Glitch Trap like possesses some, like, it's like some weird sci-fi like uploaded into the brain thing. I don't know. It's a little too complicated, and that's where I'm like, bye. Like, no. I guess brownie points for making a VR game, because Help Wanted is just like the VR game, but I do not care about the whole like sci-fi thing. I think it's done poorly, and I just don't care. Why you gotta keep bringing William into it? Like, create a new character. Like, I wouldn't be mad. I'm like dying for them. If they're gonna do a new game, I'm dying for them to like create a copycat killer, you know? I feel like that would be infinitely more interesting. And they had the perfect opportunity to do that in Security Breach. Every theory I've seen about Security Breach is dumb, and I don't like it. Like, again, I loved that the narrative just ended, and it was satisfying, and it was everything I could have wanted. But I feel like no one in this game at this point has been allowed to have agency besides William, especially the women characters, because in Security Breach, the villains alluded to be Vanessa/Vanny. Then it ends up being like William's behind it all anyways. Like, he's like burn trap now. Like, oh, he's burned, but he's still alive. Like, no. And there are also theories about William's like wife, who I believe is his ex-wife, is now like the owner of everything, and she's doing some weird shit trying to make her children again, It's boring, it's confusing, and also it's stupid, and it just creates a narrative out of something that should be done. Everyone should be dead. That's it. I'm accepting that. If anything's still going, it's William stuck in hell for all I care. Let that man suffer. But also, like, Security Breach is just not a good game. It's like the most expensive one, first of all. It's like $40. I think you could pay like less than $40 to get all of the other games. So you're telling me it's like this expensive? Yeah, it's like so broken. It's so broken. And there's lots of good videos that talk about the issues with this game, and I'll link some below. I'll credit some at the end. There's a lot of people who've talked about why this game is just bad and why it's so disappointing on like, as like a person who's a fan of the lore and the story, and how like it was kind of like a slap in the face, you know? They like spit at me. But there's also a lot of really funny compilations of big gaming YouTubers running into different glitches in the game. I particularly like Markiplier compilations of him just having problems with the game. Yeah, that is why I'm not including those two, because I don't care. I don't like them. But okay, I'm done. Thank you for sitting through this. Kisses. Feel free to disagree with me on my timeline in the comments, or engage, or if you feel like I made a subtle mistake, feel free to mention in the comments. I know that someone's gonna disagree with my timeline and what I think, you know, the lore is, and that's okay. But personally, I think this is the most satisfying narrative of the story, and I included all the details that I find particularly interesting, and I'm proud of this. I think I've made a timeline that I really enjoy, and I enjoy the FNAF lore, and I can't believe once I post this, I'm done with this project. I've been working on this for so long. But I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff. And I'll see you when I see you. Or.